Bills Mafia. Are you ready? From North Carolina to Buffalo, the Mafia is united. This is your home for the passion, the power, and the pride of the Buffalo Bills. Welcome to Bills Mafia Carolina Takeover.
Bills Mafia, welcome back to another episode. We took a week off last week just to get prepared as the preseason is upon us. The games have started, and so we are full go from this point going forward. So super excited. Preseason game number 1 was in the books, and a lot of encouraging signs. It was the first time we got to saw the defense. So really excited to talk a little bit about that this week. And to kick things off, we are going to start with a little Mafia Mail.
The family has spoken. It's time for Mafia Mail. Your questions, your takes, your voice, right here on Bills Mafia Carolina Takeover. Let's go.
All right. So I got a lot of great emails over the last couple weeks here, and I got an email from Lacey in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So headed out in the Midwest. Appreciate you watching the show and tuning in. And I wanted to start off with the Mafia Mail first because this is going to lead right into what we're going to talk about today. So here's Lacey's email. Owen, watching the Bills against Carolina, the thing that surprised me the most was how good the second and third units looked, especially the offensive line. It seems like Buffalo might have some tough decisions when they cut this roster down to 53. You're right about that. Do you think that this is the deepest roster we've seen in Josh Allen's era? And if you had to pick one position group where Buffalo could afford to lose a starter for a few weeks and still be okay, which would it be? Love the show. Go Bills. Yeah, so thank you for the question, Lacey from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Appreciate that. So it seems like Buffalo might actually have some tough decisions when they cut the 53-man roster, you said. And the short answer is yes, but I think every team has a tough task ahead of them at the 53-man roster. Remember, you only get 46 jerseys on game day, so even if you make the 53, it doesn't quite necessarily mean that you're going to actually get a jersey. So I think the biggest thing to answer your question here, I think the biggest decision by the Bills is not necessarily the 53-man roster, but it's going to come the game day roster, especially if you end up carrying wide receivers, Keon and all them. Because then you got to decide. Skylar Bell, I know he's hurt, but if he's healthy and he's able to get out there and show that he can really belong here, which I think Skylar Bell is going to be a huge asset for the Bills. I've said it all year, but the game day roster is really where it's going to be more difficult, Lacey, for the Bills, and that's figuring out who gets a jersey. Your other question here about the deepest roster that Josh Allen has ever had here. If you go back and listen to a few of the first episodes this year, I mentioned that this is the biggest and deepest roster for Josh Allen, not because of the offense, but because what is about to take place on the defense. So yes, I do think that this is going to be Josh Allen's best roster, possibly best year on both sides of the ball to be able to get this done. Lacey, I appreciate your question from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It's always awesome to hear from people all across the country. If you'd like to get in on the Mafia Mail, just hit me up at billsmafiacto@gmail.com, and maybe your email will get read next time on Mafia Mail.
That's a wrap on Mafia Mail. The family's spoken, but the table's never closed. Got a question? Email billsmafiacto@gmail.com, and we'll save you a seat at the next sit-down. Go Bills!
All right. Thank you again, Lacey from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, for reaching out. Really do appreciate that. And let's get into this preseason game number 1. Wrote down some notes here. Overall takeaway, the team looks deep. That's what I see there. I mean, both sides of the ball looks deep. Brandon Beane, since he's been here, has always talked about roster depth, competition on the roster depth. I think that is the biggest takeaway that I see. It's noticeable across all the roster. Now, look, I'm not a big preseason guy. I mean, you could go through the years, even when the Bills were shitty, you can go through the years and say, this guy was good against this team in the preseason. This guy was good against this guy, so forth and so on. It's preseason, right? Like I mentioned earlier, it's the 46. It's who's going to get that game day roster. But with that being said, it does look like that the Bills have a really deep roster here. And one thing that Lacey had mentioned in her email, which I didn't mention, was if one of the position groups goes down, is there enough backup there? So obviously it really depends. I mean, obviously if Josh Allen goes down, that's going to be about game over, depending on how long he's out for. If it's a week or two, you're fine. You've got enough weapons in James Cook, and you've got some backup quarterbacks that's been in there. But if Josh Allen's going to be out for an extended period of time, it's going to be really tough. Now, with that being said, the Bills defense, like I mentioned earlier in a few of the earlier podcasts here, the Bills defense is not good. It will win games for Buffalo. So if someone like Josh Allen goes out, it's definitely dire straits for sure. But the Bills could get maybe sneak a few wins here and there. But really the position groups, preseason, just looking back the last couple years, maybe secondary is probably the one area that, we don't really know about the secondary right now under Jim Leonhard here. So that would be my cautious concern. If that somebody in the secondary goes out, what does that look like? Because that hurt us not only last year, but the previous years before that. So I would definitely take a look at that. As far as the depth, though, I mean, running back looks deep. I mean, Frank Gore is still there. He's not going to make he's not going to make the game day roster. He'll be a practice squad guy again. But look, you got James Cook. You've got Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, depending on his healthy there. Those three are going to start there. But the one position group that I was really impressed by and that really jumped off the television was the offensive line. Both the starters and the backups looked great. Now, obviously, Tom McGovern's out here with an injury. He's supposed to be ready to go for week 1. So that's going to be interesting. And, am I concerned about that? Certainly. But like I said, definitely based on the depth of the offensive line, I think that's the biggest thing that I saw where I feel comfortable enough that somebody's got to be plug and play for a few weeks that the offense will continue to go. So look, I mean, the overall big takeaway here, the Bills look deep. They look like a deep football team, and the offensive line right now is one of the clearest examples of that. Going into preseason week 1. Josh Allen looks good. Josh Allen's never not looked good in preseason. Interesting to see what Joe Brady's mindset is when it comes to preseason. If he's going to give Josh a little bit more leeway to play in these preseasons. But he looks sharp, right? I mean, he looks sharp, look confident, obviously running the offense. Like, I mean, we don't have to harp too much on Josh Allen. He, his head coach is his offensive coordinator. So really all of that is going to be, I mean, a lot of that is not going to be a huge difference there. We talked a lot about the transition isn't going to be a huge deal just based on Joe Brady being the head coach there. One of the things that I observed, if I had to pick something out here, I believe it was around 6 minutes left in the first. I'm reading my notes here. I think Buffalo was 3rd and 15, I think. And Josh had a wide open check down on the right-hand side, but instead of taking that, Josh being Josh, he looked downfield, try to make a bigger play. Get it, preseason, not a big deal. But, those are decision makers, right? Those are things that fans have talked about since Josh Allen has been here. Take the check down, right? When it's there. I'm not saying he's got to be check down guy, but, that 3rd and 15 there with 6 minutes to go in the first quarter, that would have been an easy check down and, you may be walking away. But, let it behold, Carolina gives him 15 yards on a face mask. Then the next play, he finds DJ Moore, a strike to Moore. And then the next play is a touchdown to Keon Coleman. So, sugar high Josh, that's the type of Josh you're going to get. We're going to live and die with that Josh. But, I mean, really, overall, Josh Allen just looks like Josh Allen. Okay, the defense, major takeaway. This defense looked as advertised and possibly even better, if that's even possible. Preseason, again, the first line unit looks nasty. We spent a lot of time wondering what this defense could be, how this defense could look, what is the 3-4 look, and right now it is aggressive, attacking, disruptive, really all of the things that everyone has been saying since Jim Leonhard's been on here. That is what the defense looks like. TJ Parker, for example, is an absolute menace. He will be an absolute menace. The guy is absolutely as advertised. He is disruptive. He's fast for his builds, and he's able to find ways to get into the backfield. And that's one of the things that I think the Bills defense has been lacking, is getting the pressure in there. So TJ Parker looks like an absolute unit. And so I am really excited about TJ Parker and what that looks like. All right, now to flip it back from TJ Parker to the offensive line, who's got to practice against TJ Parker every week here. Look, we talked a little bit about it earlier in the show. Offensive line, possibly right now, may look like the best depth position for the Bills. And that's kind of shocking to say, really, when you think about an offensive line. Obviously, the 5 starters are legit. They're going to be there, all pros, but if something were to happen, it does, to me right now, it doesn't seem like it's going to miss a beat. And since Brandon Beane has been here with the Bills and Josh Allen's been the quarterback, that's kind of been the MO. I mean, we've filtered in guys here and there during, certain times of the season, and it really hasn't skipped a beat. But that offensive line definitely is overall the deepest roster position that could really plug and play. The second unit, now again, preseason, but the second unit, when they came on the field against Carolina, didn't skip a beat. I felt like played really well, ran the ball extremely well, and that is very encouraging when you're talking about an offensive line. So that's a huge deal for Buffalo. If they're able to find 2 guys out of the backup offensive line that can play multiple positions, I think that's going to be a huge impact. And also, it's also going to provide, possibly down the road for Brandon Beane, a future starter at a cheap rate. So I thought the offensive line did really well on both 1s and 2s, but ultimately the Bills offensive line right now after game 1 appears to have the biggest depth in the whole roster. I wrote down here running back depth. I mean, it's pretty clear cut and dry. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Obviously Cook, Ray Davis, and Ty Johnson. Those 3 stay healthy. Those are going to be your 3 there. Frank Gore's a nice player. He did well in the preseason, did well last year in the preseason. Fan favorite. I totally get that. But Frank Gore's not going to see the field if these 3 guys are healthy. It's just a tough situation for Frank Gore here in Buffalo. Could he start somewhere else or be a backup? Probably at another team. But here in Buffalo right now for Frank Gore, he's still probably going to be that 4th man out. So running back depth obviously is going to be good. But if something were to happen to them, any of those 3 guys, I think Frank Gore could come in, step in, and take care of business. All right, special teams. Not a lot of special teams. Interested to see the punter there. I'm a big special teams guy, as everybody know. It's game 1 of basically live action. Did the kick coverage team do well? No, I didn't think they did well at all. So it's something to watch. Not too concerned about it here after preseason game 1. Certainly last year there was some issues with special teams, especially the kick coverage team. So something to keep an eye on, but yeah, I'm more interested to kind of see the punting aspect of this and see where that goes. And also, Bass, for all the talk in the offseason about Bass not kicking, he missed, I think, 1 field goal. He seems to be right on track. So, no issues there, Bills Mafia, as far as special teams go. So my top 6 biggest takeaways so far after game 1 against Carolina Panthers. Josh Allen looks sharp, confident. Being Josh Allen, all-pro, Hall of Fame, name it what you want. DJ Moore looks absolutely as advertised for Josh Allen, so that's going to be awesome. Number 2, the defense looked as advertised or even better than what I anticipated. Super excited to see what that evolves into. Number 3, TJ Parker is a menace. He will be a menace for the defense. That's going to be a huge piece for the Bills. So I'm really interested to see how much that goes. Number 4, so far after week 1 preseason game, the offensive line looks excellent as we would expect, but not only the first stringers, the second stringers look great. There's a lot of depth there for Brandon Beane. That might be a tough area for Beane right now, to Lacey's question, as far as figuring out how many he wants to keep and how many he's got to let go, because I felt like after week 1, that's the biggest depth section there. Overall, Buffalo's overall roster depth really stands out. Not only on the offensive line, but the running back position, like we talked about. Those guys, those 3 guys are in there. Not surprised, but even if one of them does go out, Frank Gore, I think, can step in for a little bit and take care of business. And lastly, number 6, biggest takeaways after preseason week 1, special teams. Didn't see the punt out there. Curious to see how much we get to see of that. And next couple games. My only takeaway from special teams is the kick coverage. Wasn't great. Obviously, it's game 1, so I'd want to see what we look like against Cleveland on game 2. All right, Bills Mafia. It's preseason. We're going to see some things we love. We're going to see some things that obviously drive us crazy. We still have a whole season to go, and we're probably going to be overreacting, not only during preseason, but certainly during the regular season. But that's the fun part of it, right? But we can't get caught up in that, right? Preseason's about finding out who belongs on this football team and about the rookies, the guys fighting for positions in those final roster spots. And from what I have seen so far, and it's early in week 1 of preseason, there's a lot to be excited about, right? But again, it's preseason. So let's enjoy it. Let's learn something from it, and let's save the real stress for when the games actually count, because that's what's going to happen throughout the season. Thanks so much for hanging out with me here at Bills Mafia Carolina Takeover. You can reach me again at billsmafiacto@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe, like, hit that bell for my new episodes. If you haven't been to our website, it's billsmafia.riverside.com. You can see all the episodes up there. Also, sign up for our newsletter. It comes out every week during a show week. And don't forget to leave comments on these videos here. I enjoy reading them. I'm getting a ton of other fans interaction, which is really cool. So if you're a fan of another team and you disagree with me, drop in the comments. We'll talk about it. And as always, be good, do good, God bless, go Bills.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Bills Mafia Carolina Takeover. Thanks for tuning in and repping the Mafia with us. Don't forget to subscribe, drop your Mafia mail, and join us next time as we bring the passion, the pride, and the power of the Buffalo Bills straight from the Carolinas. Let's go Buffalo.